I won't allow you to have it all to herself. How could an old woman possibly spend $6,700,000? The assets and the position of the company president should be inherited by my husband. As the eldest son, I won't give a single dollar to you. Do you understand? I was taken aback by Laura's harsh words and couldn't find the words to respond. So far, the eldest son and his wife have behaved as if they've forgotten their gratitude towards us, showing an unpleasant attitude time and again. Yet, now that Michael has passed away, it's unbelievable that they only want to claim his inheritance, especially when they never visited him once during his hospital stay. How could things go as this couple wishes? We must find a way to resist them. With that thought, I decided to plot my revenge against the couple. I was determined to defeat them completely. My name is Elizabeth Murphy. I'm 58 years old, just a regular housewife. I've spent peaceful days with my husband, Michael. We have a son, and our eldest, Daniel, lives nearby with his happy family. Dad, Mom, I want to marry this woman. Along with those words, he introduced Laura, who was elegant yet friendly, and at the same time, possessed a feminine charm. She was a wonderful person. I thought she'd be a perfect fit for our family, and we welcomed her. Afterward, Daniel and Laura happily tied the knot. Especially, Michael adored Laura as if she was his own daughter. He frequently invited them for dinners and even planned beautiful trips for their wedding anniversaries. I believe the couple truly appreciated such considerate gestures. But everything changed the day Michael fell ill. One day, while I was doing household chores, the phone rang loudly. It was a call from one of Michael's colleagues, notifying me that he had collapsed at work. I immediately packed and rushed to the hospital he was taken to. By the time I got there, Michael was still unconscious. Soon after my arrival, Daniel and Laura also rushed in. In the hospital room where Michael stayed, the doctor gave a detailed explanation about Michael's current condition. He probably has a year to live. I was devastated by the doctor's words. Just a year? Michael seemed healthy the day before. How could he receive such a diagnosis all of a sudden? Shocked by the news about the limited time left, I could hear Daniel and Laura whispering to each other beside me. After discussing with the doctor, we decided to hospitalize Michael to prolong his life as much as possible. Fortunately, Michael was the company's CEO, and we were in a financially stable position, so I wasn't worried about hospital bills. Once the discussion ended, the doctor left to attend to another patient, leaving just the two of us in the room. I held Michael's hand. It felt colder than usual, making me realize that all of this was not a dream. Mrs. Murphy, there's something I'd like to discuss. Laura approached me. I listened intently, thinking she had something important to say. We can't visit anymore. Seeing Mr. Murphy like this is too painful. So please take care of him from now on. I was at a loss for words, both shocked and puzzled by Laura's statement. Indeed, I can understand the shock from learning about Michael's medical condition. But if they never visit him again, they may never see Michael again. As I remained silent, Daniel continued the conversation. We don't like seeing our dad like this. We have our own lives. And maybe Dad would be happier if he could spend more time with Mom. I'm sorry. After saying this, the eldest son and his wife quietly packed their things and left the hospital room. I was left alone, holding Michael's hand. Fear for the future engulfed me, wondering what to do next. After a while, Michael regained consciousness. He was more lucid than I expected. He seemed to deeply understand and accept that he had collapsed at work and the doctor's explanation. But he was still looking forward. By the way, didn't Daniel come to visit? I didn't know how to answer Michael's question. I feared that telling him about Daniel might hurt him. Even with his limited time left, I wanted to avoid telling him such things. With that thought, I covered up about Daniel and his family. Daniel is busy with work, but don't worry, I'm here with you. Yes, because I'm by his side, everything will be all right. I tried to calm myself by thinking that, as the eldest couple said, they never visited again. Instead, I went to the hospital almost every day. Every time I saw Michael, he would sadly whisper, "I guess they're not coming again today." Occasionally, I would rush to the hospital waiting room and impulsively call Laura as I was unable to bear the situation. Michael seems to be doing well today. He seems lonely without you guys. Could you possibly come to visit, even if it's just you, Laura? I'm sorry, but it's just too painful to see Mr. Murphy like this. Especially thinking he only has 1 year left. Laura continuously refused to visit, but I wasn't ready to give up. I kept persuading Laura with all my might, even offering to pick her up. But suddenly, Laura's attitude shifted dramatically. Oh, enough is enough. It's annoying. I was taken aback by her response and blurted out, "Huh?" Ignoring my shock, Laura made a very rude statement. Visiting is such a hassle. We could be enjoying lunch with friends or spending quality time as a couple. We're the next CEO and his wife. We can't waste our time. Why? Please, stop urging us to visit. We are very busy. Laura abruptly hung up the phone. I was left in shock and speechless. I decided never to mention this to Michael. "What's wrong? You look so down." "Nothing," I replied with a trembling voice, but I felt that I couldn't tell Michael about it, so I stayed silent. After that, I visited the hospital almost daily. I strongly wanted to be by Michael's side and spend as much time with him as possible. During this period, I became close with the hospital staff and received much assistance. Whenever Michael saw me, he greeted me with a happy smile. That smile was the source of my strength. Then, a year later, Michael passed away after a long battle with his illness. Despite his condition, he lived with passion until the very end. There were many tasks awaiting me, such as funeral and altar preparations, and I handled them all by myself. My eldest son and his wife didn't help and didn't even talk to me. They somehow showed up at the funeral, but they didn't even greet others but kept their eyes on their smartphones. I was surprised by their lack of manners as adults. After the cremation was completed, I placed Michael's ashes on the family altar. Seeing him return home after a long time, he looked much smaller. It was then that my eldest son and his wife spoke to me. "I'm really sorry about Dad. I've been relying too much on you, and I truly regret it." Daniel's hand gently patted my back. However, his consolation couldn't fully heal the deep wounds in my heart. Michael used to chat happily with me, but he often looked lonely. Probably because his eldest son and his wife had been absent for so long. Considering this, I couldn't bring myself to mend ties with them immediately. Laura spoke up as she saw how I behaved to Daniel. What she said surprised me. "What's the situation with the inheritance? Who would want to discuss inheritance in such a painful situation?" But it seemed she didn't care about my feelings. While I remained silent, Laura continued, "I won't allow you to keep them all. An old woman can't possibly use all $6,700,000, right? The assets of $6,700,000 and the president's position should go to my husband, the eldest son. You won't get a single dollar. Understand?" I couldn't do anything but stay silent against Laura's unreasonable words. Then a mix of sadness and anger enveloped me. They barely visited when he was sick. They didn't help at all during the funeral. They didn't know how much Michael longed to see them. Laura's incredibly rude words ignited a deep anger in my heart. I decided to fight back, both for my sake and Michael's. "Can you give me a moment?" I took out the will I had received from the lawyer. I had reviewed its contents before, but I needed to check the details once again. My eldest son and his wife were suspicious of my actions, but this was crucial. Upon verifying the will, I felt relieved. Michael must have foreseen everything. He understood all the efforts I had made on my own. The will he left was the evidence of that. Recalling the content of the will, I remembered the words Laura had said earlier. The inheritance of $6,700,000 and the president's position will be inherited by my husband, the eldest son. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at such an outrageous statement. What's so funny? Mom, are you okay? Have you lost your mind? My eldest son and his wife were alarmed by my sudden laughter. But once I started, I couldn't stop laughing. I was uncontrollably amused. Certainly, those who witnessed such a scene must have found it bizarre. Let's talk about the inheritance later. Please make sure to handle everything properly. She took Daniel with her and left the house. And then, I was left alone in this house. I won't forgive them. I will make sure they get what they deserve, I murmured as I approached the family altar. Even though Michael was no longer here to reply, I felt somehow connected to him. After that, I had busy days. Handling the inheritance and dealing with Michael's company took more time than expected. Once everything was finally settled, Laura called, possibly concerned about the lack of progress regarding the inheritance. Mrs. Murphy, what's the status of the inheritance? Please don't dawdle and complete the process soon. We've been waiting for a long time. Her tone was urging. Of course, time had passed. And for someone like Laura, who was desperate for the inheritance, it was understandable if she was getting impatient. I understand. I'll proceed as quickly as I can. Please do, and don't use the inheritance for anything. Even if you're getting forgetful, doing that would cut our family ties. Laura's insensitive words would have deeply hurt me in the past. But now, she meant nothing to me, so her words didn't affect me. However, I felt bad for making them wait. So I contacted the lawyer Michael trusted. This lawyer had previously helped draft Michael's will. When I mentioned I wanted to explain the will's content to my eldest son and his wife, the lawyer readily agreed. I then informed the couple about the meeting. And when the day finally came, I waited at home with the lawyer. Soon, I heard the sound of the front door opening. What's the status of the inheritance? If you touched even a single dollar of the $6,700,000, I won't spare you. With that, Laura and Daniel abruptly entered the house. I found it quite ironic that the two, who never visited during the hospitalization, were this eager when money was involved. I have no intention of touching the inheritance. I'm not as obsessed with money as you, Laura. I won't touch it before the process is completed. Laura's attitude was disrespectful, and Daniel's complacency towards her rudeness was equally disappointing. You don't have to talk about obsession. Let's just get the inheritance matter settled quickly. That's our main concern. Laura seemed at her edge, desperate about the inheritance. Deeming it difficult to ease the tension, I asked the lawyer to read out Michael's will. First, regarding the inheritance. As the content of the will was revealed, shock and disbelief spread across the couple's faces. What? This must be some kind of mistake. The will stated that all of Michael's assets would go to me, and nothing would be left for Daniel. The reason for this decision was also detailed in the will. During his hospitalization, the couple never visited him once. I knew the reason but kept it from Michael. Still, he sensed something was troubling me. When suspicions arose in Michael's heart, he had reliable employees gather information. Daniel, being the eldest son and likely future head of the company, easily had access to internal information. Employees reported that Daniel was discussing the inheritance with his colleagues. Soon, I'll get $6,700,000. Just thinking about that old man being gone is so refreshing. Upon hearing this, Michael decided to prevent the inheritance from being distributed. What are you thinking? How many times have I told you not to speak of the inheritance? Upon learning the contents of the will, a furious Laura grabbed Daniel by the collar. Daniel seemed to have taken for granted that he would be the next president and acted rashly. "I'm sorry. I never thought it would come to this," he apologized, looking pale. But Laura's anger didn't subside so easily. "That's because the much-desired inheritance was ruined by Daniel's actions. This is all because of your carelessness. If there's no inheritance, I don't need you. Divorce? We're getting a divorce?" With those words, it became clear that Laura had married Daniel for the inheritance. I was shocked to learn that a woman we had accepted as a family was so manipulative. We, who had been interacting with Laura's family and helping each other, felt foolish. However, the revenge was not over. I had one more ace up my sleeve. You talk of divorce so lightly, as if there's another man. Marrying for money and putting a divorce on the family register seemed a cruel plan to me. But for Laura, it was possible. I had gathered evidence of it. What are you talking about? There are no other men. Laura looked away as if she wanted to escape the situation. I almost laughed seeing her like that. Since you're playing dumb, let me show you the evidence I have. Wait a minute. Laura tried to stop me, but I took out an envelope from the closet and spread the photos inside on the table. Daniel approached the table with keen interest. Laura desperately pulled on Daniel's clothes, pleading, "Don't look. It's just a misunderstanding." But the difference in their strength was evident. And Daniel reached the table. The photos showed Laura walking arm in arm with another man in the evening. Every picture conveyed the closeness and deep relationship between the two. "Damn it, you've been cheating on me. You've been deceiving me this whole time." Yes, these photos were evidence of Laura's infidelity. While discussions about the inheritance were ongoing, I consulted with trustworthy individuals. One of them had suggested investigating Laura's background. I decided it was best to check and had a private investigator conduct research. The results were astonishing. The moment Daniel saw the photos, his face turned pale, then bright red. He then grabbed Laura by the collar and shouted at her, "What were you thinking? Were you planning to divorce me and get with another man? You're the worst, you filthy woman." Daniel's voice was loud with condemnation. His anger was understandable. After all, the couple who were bound by mutual trust and the common goal of inheriting a fortune were actually in a state where they could betray each other at any moment. It's not my fault. The problem is you, Daniel. You were always focused on work and never made time for me. You brought this upon yourself. Indeed, Daniel had been wholly dedicated to his work, aiming for the position of the next company president. Michael, the current president, had conveyed this, and Daniel must have been seriously working towards that goal. By the way, Daniel has already lost the position of the next president. Another employee, whom Michael trusts, has been nominated as the successor. It was clearly stated in the will. Hearing this, Daniel's face showed shock and disappointment. Having worked for so long to become Michael's successor, this reality must have been a shock to him. However, I felt that the reason our family was pushed into this situation was due to our obsession with money and status, which had overshadowed family ties. If we had valued our time together as a family and deepened our relationship with Michael, it wouldn't have come to this. Mom, you're joking, right? Dad wouldn't say such a thing. Daniel remained unconvinced for a long time. I looked at the liar and asked, "Is it written like that in the will, isn't it?" The liar nodded affirmatively. Seeing this, Daniel's face turned emotionless, still unable to accept the reality. Haha, serves you right. This is what you get for underestimating me. For some reason, Laura spoke with a triumphant smirk. But it was hard to accept her being the only one happy. "I want a divorce. I'll sue you for emotional distress. So be prepared." "What do you mean, sue me?" When Daniel mentioned lawsuits, Laura's expression changed instantly. The lawsuits regarding infidelity usually result in a substantial amount of compensation. Laura probably had the same perception. No, let's not divorce. I can't afford to pay any compensation. Laura changed her stance conveniently, taking back her words. But Daniel's mind won't change. No, I want a divorce. I can't go on like this anymore. With those words filled with anger, Daniel left the house. Laura also left, shouting "wait," and seemingly chasing after Daniel. The storm had passed, and my revenge drama had come to an end. All I could do now was to watch and see how their relationship would unfold. Later, as Daniel had said, the two decided to divorce. Laura resisted till the end, but Daniel's mind was already set. They negotiated and eventually finalized the divorce. Furthermore, Daniel claimed compensation from Laura for her infidelity. I had previously investigated Laura and found out that she had misused household funds for her affair. Knowing this, Daniel also claimed that amount. Laura, unable to pay, turned to her parents for help. But Daniel had already reached out, and she was reprimanded by them. Her parents paid the compensation on the condition that she work in the family business. She seems to be forced into long hours of work, a far cry from her previous lifestyle as the future president's wife. On the other hand, Daniel lost his position and resigned from the company. He now works as a regular employee at another company, leading a solitary life. The issues surrounding Michael and me finally came to a close. Honestly, those days were tough. But with my relationship with Laura and Daniel over, I now lead a peaceful life. The decision to cut ties with dear family members was challenging. But I couldn't forgive how they had treated Michael. His presence gave me the strength to move forward. I want to continue living a happy life with pride as Michael's wife.